Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Neil Thrussell of the Shin Institute, and welcome to Spiritual Warriors Wisdom. And I'm really excited to have Leo Treadwell as my guest today. Welcome, Leo.
Thank you, Neil. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Thanks. And you'll notice that Leo is sitting in a car, and not because he's bad, but he's decided that he needed to go and spend some quality beach time, and this is a way for him to balance his life. So you've you probably are not like the rest of us, and you've had this gifted life and it's spoon fed, and nothing has ever gone wrong on your life, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Neil.
Hmm. So let's just do a quick recap. You had this perfect marriage, two beautiful kids, a a business that was on the going great guns, and then it went the opposite direction.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
And so, as a spiritual warrior, what was your lessons from this? What did you take away?
Well, it's interesting because I had a lot of tools that I could have worked with during that time, as far as uh, or as an example, like as things were falling apart in my personal life, I was actually postured in a perfect position in my business and financial life to move forwards. Um, Back then, it was about 10 years ago. The internet hadn't even came close to totally blossoming for online marketing or sales or online academies and things of that sort. I was doing a lot of live presentations, speaking from the stage. And just before we were getting ready to launch our business, we had about little over a million warm leads, and we were getting over a 12% response on our conversion rate with our test marketing, which meant had we decided to launch, we would have been looking at $1 million on our first day in sales. But I chose not to launch this business because I didn't feel it was appropriate to be taking work into the world about helping people improve their lives when my life was beginning to fall apart. And at that time, I thought it was going to be a pretty quick fix, and then I can get the business going and move on. Um,
Apparently, the universe had other thoughts.
Apparently, the universe had other thoughts. Correct. And going back to what I was originally saying there was that I had a lot of tools that I could have used to help me through that, but I decided to kind of put those on the wayside and just feel the experiences I was having instead of trying to avoid them. Um, I could have, and I decided to share them just out in the open because I've always felt that I've never really enjoyed plastic smiles or fake it till you make it type stuff.
Yes.
Uh, so I was like, this is the process that I'm going through, so I'll just let it be known to the world, and we'll get through this real quick and get back to where I started from. And like you said, the universe had other plans. 10 years later, 16 custody battles later, filing bankruptcy, having to start a business to keep me going. That was something not in human development, personal development, because again, I didn't feel that was appropriate. Um, Working with general contractors in the construction field, and hiring laborers, and working with a different type of people than I was normally used to working with after working with the military um, in their leadership academies and Fortune 500 companies, and people who wanted to travel halfway around the world for a seminar, to be working with laborers who didn't graduate from high school, had drug and alcohol addictions, didn't really care much about their own self-improvement or nothing, was a big wake-up call for me. Um, so I think, number one, I run a lot of masculine energy, and I still believe the work that I have to do in the world. I mean, I feel it so deeply inside of me. I'm not even, there's not even barely a slight concern about doing well in this industry as I'm getting back into it now. But I think there's something different. I wasn't really the person I needed to be for the magnitude of work that I believe that I'll be bringing to the world. And that's because I was running so much masculine energy. I wasn't as nurturing as I should be, or could be, or was capable of being, um,
Yes.
and pretty self-centered, egotistical. Uh, um,
So just to tie this up, so what were the lessons that you take away? So if you were,
yeah,
what did you learn through this whole process?
yeah. So the lessons I learned were to be a softer person, um, to be much more empathetic. Um, And also, I've been totally fine with everything that's happened this whole time, which is pretty cool. I'm happy with that. Um, it's a shame. I've thought often that, gosh, we only get to live to be, 80 to 100 years old, and it's a bummer that by age 50, I'm just starting to get like some of this stuff figured out. You know, like I wish I was living to be 300 to capitalize on this more. But
Yeah.
but really, the takeaways are there's a lot. There's a lot. My ideas of success have changed. Um,
How
my
so?
my feeling around relationship has changed immensely, immensely. My compassion and empathy for other people is gigantic compared to where it was. That doesn't mean that I necessarily want to be hanging out with a bunch of people because that's totally different. I actually don't really want to be hanging around nearly as many people as I used to. Um, I've learned to understand that a lot of people are in a really hard spot these days, and at no fault of their own, they're looking for places to get energy from. I'm a person who likes to give energy, so over the last few years, I've given a lot of energy to a lot of people that didn't really appreciate it or maybe even want it, because it's my natural tendency to want to help people improve the quality of their lives. But I was working with a lot of people who really weren't interested. Um, and again, when I come back to the definition of success, like I was far more of a tight person when it came to the flow of the my money. Always waiting for later, kind of saving for that security type of thing. Where, man, I mean, I don't want to be with my ex-wife. I'm glad we're not together. We probably shouldn't have been married, in all honesty. But one of the things that she had told me when we were together is she said, you're always waiting for tomorrow to enjoy things instead of, enjoying what we have now. And that's something that's really changed for me, where um, I'm less concerned about my security and more concerned about the quality of the moment. Um, so
Yeah,
those are
and
probably
that's
some.
cool because as an outsider, I've seen that. You've got this beautiful woman in your life now who is from the Dominican, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And so it's like you went to the Dominican. You've been part of that. You've taken time off. You were the old you from 10 years ago would have worked 360 days, tried to be a family man, but worked 360 days to save for some other day.
Right.
Now, what you were just telling me, you couldn't remember the last time you actually were physically at a work site doing some kind of labor, which is even better because you've actually taken the effort and energy to put the right people in place so that you have this freedom.
Right. Which brings up another point, Neil, which is my confidence in business building and business coaching has gone through the roof. I'm now, I have a construction company that's very successful with hundreds of annual clients or semi-annual or quarterly clients, and I don't know anything about construction.
Yeah.
um, I I've got at the moment, not to brag or nothing, but it's just who I am by nature. I've got at least 100 days scheduled off before the end of this year already. Um, just traveling to the Caribbean and San Diego and taking several 10-day trips to monasteries and things like that. Um, and it's because I've now become aware, like, wow, I know how to run a business. It doesn't matter what type of business, it's learning how to run a business. Um, and again, enjoying the moment. Like, man, like life is precious. I definitely am a huge, I may have mentioned I don't want to be hanging around a whole lot of people a lot of the times, but if I find anybody at all that's interested in, raising the quality of their life, like, and they want some support, I'm there in a heartbeat, because I really get that after going through so much turmoil, which is, here's a point that I didn't mention. I've become more empathetic to folks who have had personal tragedies, like going through divorce or custody battles or bankruptcy or being in a job they don't like. Things along those lines that I was really unfamiliar with. I've been really blessed in my life up until that point, and it's been important for me to experience that. It's been extremely important for my relatability, my listening, my empathy, and just having a much more grounded view on reality. Um, I look around at some of the folks I used to work with in the past. I won't name any names, but some pretty well-known people in this industry. And I feel blessed that I've had some experiences that maybe they haven't had. Certainly looking forward to getting through this and being on the other side. But I do feel very grateful for that process. And it's been heartbreaking and humbling. So, yeah.
So for me, the Shin includes one of the pillars that I believe in is developing your body. And what really impresses me is that you're looking after your body. And even as we were holding a conversation before we got on air, is that how you're making and ensuring that your boys, you have two beautiful sons, that your sons are physically active, developing their bodies and eat, and you're instilling, good eating habits. All of the pieces that I think that everyone needs to do, and you're living and embodying it and instilling it in your children. So thank you. That's really, for me, that's great.
Yeah, they appreciate it too.
And since they're young kids, well, you make it fun, and we all do that. But what are you doing to look after, as a spiritual warrior? What are you doing to look after your spiritualness? What do you do? What do you practice? Anything?
Um, well, as I just mentioned, about the two different 10-day retreats, I participate in Vipassana meditation, which is the only technique that the Buddha taught, which is a process of uh, being in complete silence for 10 days and scanning the body, uh, avoiding thoughts as much as possible by scanning the body and putting attention on the sensations within the body. And my goal is to be doing 10 of those, or 4 of those 10-day sits per year. I'm up to 2 of them now, plus a fairly regular practice at the local center in Seattle and at home. But I find that everything really is a spiritual practice. More and more and more, I realize that how I conduct my business, how I connect with my partner. Um, Also, my definition of reality has changed a lot in the last couple of years. I don't see reality the same way that I did in the past. Um, I feel as if there's more evidence leading towards the fact that we live in something closer to a computer generated simulation. Um, so there's a literal programming that's going on around us right now that we live within. That's my belief. And um, that everything seems to point to the same things that we learn from, like, the law of attraction. It has to do with the rules we create based on our attention and our intention. Um, so becoming much more focused on daily actions. Am I doing something that's incongruent with uh, being an honest person or a moral person, or um, I guess these both are the same thing, which is a person who's doing what he says others should be doing. An example of work, walking my talk, being an example.
So we're
So
about halfway. Sorry to interrupt, but we're about halfway through. So for our listeners that have a very short attention span and need to run off and do something else, what is the best way if they someone wants to know a little more about you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Probably right now it's just uh, Leo Treadwell is on Facebook. I do have a new business that I'm getting ready to launch. It's found at www.iamthematrix.com, but the site's not up yet. I'm currently loading content. That'll probably be up. My goal is to have that up by March of 2018. But yeah, Facebook for right now. I'm taking things slow and steady. I'm very confident about the path I'm on. Um, and I'm also kind of keeping a lot tight because, again, I'm not the type of person who wants to be out there offering the opportunity to help a lot of people when I'm still not where I need to be. And I don't feel I'm quite there yet. I'm still in process, which is nice to be on this radio show at this point in time. So thank
Yeah,
you.
and that just comes from honesty. I don't know somewhere it like I knew you. So you say you've been divorced or separated for 10 years now?
No, I was retired 10 years ago, semi-retired 10 years ago. And let's see, we broke up. Gosh, it's probably close to maybe, yeah, 8, 9 and a half, 8, 9 years, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been
okay. So somewhere I knew you before through the infamous infancy of Facebook. We connected through some mutual friends when you were just starting out in some work. And prior to your divorce, I remember you um, living in this beautiful, simple life that I would that my wife was so envious of. You were when you were living in the A-frame and just she just thought that that was the best.
still living there.
Good, cool, good for you.
Yeah. But my goal is to be out of there by December 2018. Be out of the country by December 2018, and be like I said, my definition of success has changed immensely. So this is a beautiful place, and what's nice about that is I have to find something better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so when I first met you, I knew you when you were just about to launch this incredible program. We had a couple conversations, and then everything went south. And I'll say for the people that have missed the 10 years of that, everybody has bad days and everybody gets. But what I'm
That
impressed about it is that you have, despite some horrific things going on, that yes, you said, you could feel the frustration, but you maintained a positive attitude, which to me takes an incredible amount of strength and determination. When you're treading water in the cesspool of life and all you can do is grin and, you know, close your mouth and grit your teeth and hope none of the chunks fall in, you've done an incredible job. And to me, that just takes fortitude, it takes discipline, all of these things that are very warrior trait. But
yeah, thank
in
you.
this, you still did the hardest thing, what I think possible, is you maintained a heart open.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
what was there a practice, or did it come innately, or what did you do to keep yourself in a heart open spot?
Well, it wasn't always easy, that's for sure. And I'll start off by maybe an admission of weakness. There was definitely a time there when I hit an all-time low after our 16th custody battle, and that was the first one I lost. I actually won the first 15, but the one I lost was the one that allowed my children to move a couple thousand miles away. And at that point in time, the woman I was dating was pretty sick of me and the drama of court and all of the stuff that I was juggling, which didn't include unfortunately taking care of her or myself as well as I should have during all that, because court can be all consuming. Um, so there were some pretty low spots during there, but as my belief system, still there's some fundamental aspects, whether, I mean, no matter what, I always come back to the fact that I believe that we are living in a world of self-referral. And whether the reflections that we see in the world and the people that are around us are reflections that we want, or we don't want, um, at some point in a world of self-referral, we've got to face the music. So it just doesn't make sense to me logically not to face it, because it's going to come back. It's going to keep coming back until we learn from it. An example that I've learned that's been wonderful for me from Vipassana is that the seeds of our reactions to events propagate future events. Um,
Yes.
and that's part of the work that I do also in the language that I designed based on applied neuroplasticity. But as an example, like today, somebody keyed my car. I've got a pretty nice little car. And when I saw it, I just smiled and I said, okay, well, I'm not going to be triggered by this, because it's, A, it's just a car. And B, I think you know, I don't need to let things like this bug me. I've been through so many other things in the process, like having my kids move a couple thousand miles away, that someone keying my car, it's not worth fussing about.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things like that that are really put into perspective now after going through that loss. And the same thing's true when I talk to single fathers or single mothers, or fathers who've lost their kids, or mothers who've lost their kids, or people who've gotten out of jail, or people who are going into jail, or people with addictions, and finding out that the root cause origin of a lot of this stuff is something that is close to something I've experienced over the last 10 years. Um, so it's very easy. Like I read something yesterday, as a matter of fact. I don't remember where I saw it. It's probably Facebook or something like that, where someone was saying that people don't have much empathy these days because they haven't, or because they've gone through too much abuse. And I totally disagree with that. I think that it's the cushy lifestyles of people who haven't really gone through that much that are the least empathetic people. I believe the more personal experience that we have in those darker shadow areas of our lives really open us up to be more empathetic. And it's kind of too bad that that's what it takes for us to get there for a lot of people. But it's certainly true for me. And I've met so many quote unquote people who've been broken that have got the biggest hearts. They may be broke, like financially, or struggling in tons of areas of their lives, but they seem to have a very empathetic ear to people who have been hurt, to a point where, I mean, I've been brought to tears by people who in my past I might have looked at and had judgments based on how they carry themselves or live their lives, that have been a shoulder for me to cry on, and been like, wow. And once having those experiences, it's, for someone like myself anyway, it's pretty difficult to go back. So yeah, haven't been that strong and stuff all the time, but I am with you in the fact that as difficult as things have been, I've still lived a pretty darn good quality of life, even in the midst of bankruptcy and opening a business I knew nothing about. One of my mentors when I was very young in my teens, he told me I was opening restaurants. I got hired by a international restaurant company to be a corporate trainer and open these restaurants. And he told me, he said, look for the lazy waiters, because you're going to learn a lot from them. And I was like, what do you mean by that? He said, well, these are people who they've learned how to make a good amount of money without doing a whole heck of a lot of work. He said, no, you don't want them to compromise on their service, but there's a lot that can be learned from them as you're training and going from restaurant to restaurant to restaurant, to take those types of lazy cues as ways of, like Bruce Lee says, to isolate energy, to get more done with less effort. And it's not that they don't want to do a good job. It's just they appreciate their time off. And between him and another mentor of mine, who when I was really young, just becoming a teenager, I remember one time he hired me to do some work for him, and I was like, geez, man, you're sure paying me a lot of money to do this work. I'm surprised you don't just do it yourself for the amount you're paying me. And he said, son, my free time's worth more. And I was like, okay. So a couple of people from my past really ingrained in me at a young age that if you're going to work, find a way to do it without, spending 60 hours doing it in a week, and get as much free time as you can. And that's something that's been really amazing, is to me, that I've got this business that's been doing well. It's been doing well for, this whole time. I'm prepping to sell it in the next year and a half. And I don't know much about it, but it's supported a pretty decent lifestyle, and allowed me to have a lot of freedom. And that's where I think where the warrior aspect has really came in, because I'm a fighter. I'm a warrior for freedom, for personal freedom. Anybody who's looking for personal freedom, I'm behind. And things like racism and what's going on with the gender equality and stuff like that really pops out for me, because it doesn't really matter about the color or the sexual orientation or anything along those lines. It's just the concept of freedom that I think a lot of us don't have as much as we should. And it's something I know I relentlessly fight for myself.
Yeah.
Even in the midst of hard times, it's something it seems to be inescapable. So
we're
that's all I can.
pretty darn close to being out of time. And one of the concepts that if anyone takes anything away from today's talk, is that everything is spiritual. That's truly one of the nuggets that if you could pull out of here, everything you do is a spiritual experience. And if you think that you've tackled and handled everything in your life and you're ready for a real adventure, I say go sit in a Vipassana. Go sit for 10 days and you will find up all your shit.
Yeah.
Because being quiet for 10 days is probably would kill people just thinking about it.
Yeah.
So hats off to you for doing it. So I want to thank you for being my guest today, and thank you, and I look forward to connecting with you at other times.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you too, Neil. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.